What is up, everybody? Shauna D Man here, and welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys had yourselves a great weekend. Hope you guys had your I mean, it's like pretty much we are. I'm just gonna jump right into it. Episode 2 of season 2 of The Last of Us for HBO Max dropped last night, and my God, what an episode! Like just action. Like I am so surprised how action packed this episode was. I thought this would be something that this is like something you would drop at like a mid season of the season, or even at the end, kind of like leaving for a cliffhanger kind of situation. But no, they went straight into it with this episode. And one of the things, now again, I have not played The Last of Us season 2. Oh, I'm sorry, Last of Us Part 2 game. I've only played the first one just recently on the gaming channel. And I had hoped to try to play the game Part 2 before season 2 came out, was able to do that. So one of the things I learned from people talking about was the whole Joel dying scene. I'm just gonna jump right into it. And I was not I thought they were going to drag this particular scene out. Um, because this is definitely one of the things. I think it happens early on in the game. Also, I could be wrong. I'm actually go look at cutscenes or something like that of the game to figure out when it happens. But what I just wasn't expecting all that. Like I knew he died in the game, like in the game, and probably going to die in the series because everybody's talked about it. This wasn't some big reveal. A lot of people expected it, but they just didn't know when it would drop. A lot of people thought, myself included, that they were going to drag this out, maybe do a bunch of filler episodes going on before leading into it. No, episode 2 went right into it. But there's so much that happened in this episode. It is just insane with how good of an episode this was. Like I personally liked it. I'm sure there's gonna be a ton of people who like it. I don't think there's really anything that I found wrong with this episode. I'm sitting here trying to think. I just at the time of recording this, I just finished the episode, and I'm trying to think: was there anything particular that I did not like? Every everything was. Oh man, I don't know how properly to describe it. It was such a really good episode. It kept you on the edge of your seat. It was very emotional. Now, obviously, if you played the games, you already had that connection and things like that. So it's probably a bit more impactful from you from an emotional standpoint than somebody, say, like me, who's never really played the game, who was never really that connected to the game. So it hits differently, but like just watching it. So obviously we start off with Abby and her group, and I thought, well, we kind of did, because last week's episode I mentioned how I think episode 2 is going to be probably more of an Abby episode, or is it going to like go in a bit more into her backstory. We kind of get something like that at the beginning that kind of showcases that, where she's in the hospital where Joel basically killed everybody to rescue Ellie, and we see her walking through the hospital. Then we see, I guess, like a future version of herself, kind of, telling her, don't go in there. You know, his brains are all over the floor. You don't want to go in there. And that was her telling her past self. Like I can't think of the proper term of how to describe it. She was just reliving this in her mind and just telling her memory self, you don't want to do this, or you don't want to go in there, and that kind of thing. But it wakes up, but they all wake up. Her and her crew wake up, and they see that Jackson's a lot bigger and a lot more than what they originally thought, because now they're seeing it during daytime, massive high walls, and even I forgot his name, but one of the guys was like, "Yeah, they got 4 main checkpoints. They got dogs, they got armed patrols that overlap on their routes, and they're very organized. This isn't some pencil pushing uh place. These guys are armed to the teeth and well prepared on what they um are doing. And so later on, so Abby, they all take turns, and part of it's just like the guy is like, he's coming up with a plan how to get to Joel. But the plan is to try to convince Abby to stop all this and them going back home. So transition to, like, there's a lot of moving parts going on right here. And one of the things was a little interaction with Jesse and Ellie going up, just talking about how Dina and her kissing, and like Jesse and Dina have only been broken up for about a week, but he's just messing with her. And then apparently, Joel, like, I guess they had planned, Joel and Ellie, to go patrol together. But instead he took Dina, and they wanted Ellie to sleep in a little bit more. And obviously Ellie is upset with that because, like she tells Jesse, yeah, we're complicated. We have a complicated relationship going on right now, but we're just going to go and have our daddy daughter patrol. And so, but it's just crazy because, like, I don't want to say coincidence and things like that, but there's elements in this episode that make it to where certain things, that like a storm coming in that's so strong that it cuts to communication from really all the patrols, which causes Ellie and Jesse to get hunkered down in a weed plant store. I still don't know who Eugene is. I tried to go back and look him up and see what episode he was in, and I really couldn't find him or something or anything like that. So I don't know. But Eugene, apparently, I guess he was bit and Joel killed him, whatever. Because the therapist in the first episode mentioned it. So pretty much there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a storm coming in. Abby gets ready to head back into the cabin, which mentally for me, I'm thinking, okay, you have Jackson. All right. Wouldn't you have stationed people at this particular location, like this cabin, as maybe like a lookout post or something like that, just overlooking Jackson? You know what I mean? If that makes sense. It just seems like that's a lack of security right there, just leaving this empty building by itself. You could if you were going to do like long range patrols or something like that, you could use that cabin as a base of operations. Or like even when there's a storm, people can go to this cabin. It sounded like they had other places that you could go to, but you could probably go to this cabin and just hunker down during a winter storm. But that wasn't the case. So Abby, she gets ready to head back in, and she hears the sound of horses. Now, at first, I thought that it was Jesse and Ellie, but no, it turns out it was Joel and Dina on their patrol, and I guess was she just going to, like, I'm trying to figure out what she was trying to do in this situation. Like, was she just trying to get a better shot or a better look? I think that's what it was. I think she was trying to get a better look at who these people were, because again, they know these guys do routine patrols and stuff like that. And then so she goes down this embankment and goes into this massive field of infected, all look like they're dead, but no. Jump back real quick to Jackson, because Jesse and Ellie are talking, because what happened was, I guess a patrol went out at some point and they found a couple of infected frozen in the ground, but there were like 30 plus live infected underneath them, like kind of like using them as insulation from the cold. And so that prompted them to, okay, let me be a little bit more on arm, because everybody's very active in the town right now. And like Tommy's going over a plan to what happens if infected show up, what happens if they break through, what's everybody's roles, things like this. So they give credit to Tommy and how well they have all this planned out, what to do, where you need to go, what your role is. Like elderly and children, they go into the basement, you hunker down, you blockade everything. Everybody else is going to be up high up on the walls or on second story buildings or roofs, because Main Street is the hot zone. It's the kill box from what it looked like later on in the episode. So And so Abby awakens this massive horde of like I don't know how many, like at least 100 plus for sure. I don't want to say like 1,000. That's probably like too much. It's probably like 200-300 infected, maybe at least. Um, all just burst out of the ground. Oh my god, it was such a cool scene. It was such a cool scene watching them just burst out of the ground like the way they did, because you were watching the bodies kind of like just sink down into like at certain points, and then all of a sudden they just bust out, and then more and more continue to come out. And this ties back into what happened at the end of episode 1, where the roots in their pipes, in Jackson's pipes, one guy saw that he chopped a certain portion and began to remove it, and he saw the fungi or fungus move, which then alerted the infected on where they need to go. It directed them to Jackson, because Abby goes and at a very much intense scene trying to dodge the infected, where she gets like just trapped like a wall and a metal fence. And the weight of the infected are just like crushing and bearing down on her. Well, lo and behold, she just happens to run into Joel and Dina in this situation. And obviously she uses it to her advantage to try to convince them, hey, we can help you. Our friends are up at the cabin up just a few miles, or kind of like a mile or so from here. We got weapons, blankets, we can help you. And so they make the decision to go, because they were too far from Jackson, but they couldn't stay there with all those infected. And so they make their way to Jackson, or I'm sorry, to the cabin. Meanwhile, Jesse and Ellie get a radio call from Jackson saying, "Hey, we've contacted most of the patrols. Tell them either return to Jackson or hunker down, except for Joel and Dina." That prompts both Ellie and Jesse to grab their stuff, and basically they're going to do a search pattern where they're going to like go in different directions that will lead them back to the middle, which I believe was the copper mine, is what they said it was. And so it was going to lead them to that point. Um, but man, but for right now, I want to focus on the Jackson situation, because that was insane. That was one of the coolest things that I've seen. Like just the eeriness of because the guy is watching patrol, keeping an eye out, and he sees the infected moving, just coming out of the snowstorm and everything. Um, I, they were lighting them up. I'm curious on. Oh, I know I said there wasn't anything that I didn't find wrong. Although I will say it's now you probably could excuse it as the fun guy telling them where to go, but like there's a point where it looks like potentially Tommy and Jackson have held them up at the wall, the infected at the wall, but then you see them start to divert away from the wall, and you see a bloater run at the wall. So, and then Tommy was like, they're gonna breach, and so I don't know like what the full perimeter of the defenses were. Um, I don't know if that's just a convenient story plot just to get the infected into Jackson. Could be, maybe. I don't know, but it was just it was something. It was something. I was like, that's very convenient. Well, not convenient. Convenient is probably not the word I want to use in a situation. It was just a properly placed point in the story that allowed the infected to get into Jackson. Because for the most part, it looks like they had them stop pretty good. Obviously, they're still cleaning up and things like that. I'm surprised they didn't have like machine guns, like 30 caliber machine guns, 50 caliber machine guns, that kind of stuff. They had all sorts of like assortment of weapons and things like that, grenades, just stuff like that. I'm surprised they didn't have machine, because that would have been very much useful, especially once they got into the town, because obviously the infected breach, and we see like the massive horde make a turn around the corner, and they're just barreling down the street, and you had guys with flamethrowers, and I hope the people who pussied out and ran away, I hope they got infected. I hope they did, because they just took off running, and Tommy and this other guy, they stood their ground. But if they had, like, high caliber machine guns placed on the trucks or something like that, they could have easily, I'm not saying they would have stopped the infected, but they could have massively worn down those numbers, because once the infected got in, they start busting through everything, all the shops, the windows, into the homes, the buildings. Tommy's wife gets the attention of a bloater, but Tommy was a bad man in this episode. Like, he was so impressive in this episode, where he like a horde of infected are around him, and he's focused on the bloater to take the focus off of his wife, because the infected were able to get up onto the second floors, they're able to get onto the roof, and it's a free for all, plain and simple. It's a massive free for all, just chaotic, just chaos in Jackson at the moment. Then we get a cool little standoff with Jesse and this bloater. At first, because the bloater was just taking the flamethrower, and I was just like, this boy, he's just championing it out. And then he just, I guess the damage was done enough to where he just fell over. And so I was like, yeah, Tom, if I were you, I'd bounce out of there too. His wife goes, and I guess this was one of their secret weapons was their dogs. They had they look like German shepherds. Maybe somebody could probably correct me, but like, she goes and she unleashes the dogs, and oh my god, it was just so cool. I know, like, it sounds like I'm just nerding out over it, but it was so cool. Just Tommy's like firing at the infected, and you hear the sound of dogs coming, and then they just pop out and they just tackle infected. I was like, oh my gosh, this was cool. I really, really love this. And so, oh well, man. So while the battle is still going on, Dina, Joel, and Abby make their way up to the base, to the cabin where Abby's friends are waiting, and they make it in. Dina has frostbite because she's having a rough time, but then Abby reveals her true intentions and things like that, and it just gets messy. And because I think Abby was like, this is Dina and that's Joel, and like they really didn't have to dig. They really didn't have to. I mean, I guess you could probably. I know I said there wasn't much in this episode that I could point to that bothered me, but I guess it's a very right time, right place kind of situation, I guess. But whatever. I don't know how it happens in the game. I may go back and take a look at that. But obviously it gets serious. It gets serious, and they knock out Dina, and she's like, and Abby's just like, either you're gonna tell the truth because we all know about it, or we're gonna kill her. But then she says that, like, I guess it's because like Abby's revenge is so strong that she's willing to like break that code, because she mentioned how their commander installed them a code to where you don't fight, or you won't kill somebody who is defenseless, right? I believe that's what she said. But she kills Joel, he's defenseless. You threaten to kill Dina, she's defenseless. So I'm not sure. Again, I could probably excuse it if it's in the sense that her revenge against Joel for apparently shooting her dad, the doctor that Joel shot was her dad. I could probably excuse the fact that she was so filled with rage and wanted revenge that she was willing to just forget that code and do what needed to be done. She takes a shotgun and shoots Joel in the leg, and then tells a friend to tourniquet him. Like, good lord! And then we don't see it, but we do see like the golf club scene, or not the golf club scene, but we do see her take out some golf clubs and start just beating the crap out of Joel. This is where Ellie kind of shows up, and she hears everything upstairs. And she just slowly makes it in, and she could just see just Abby just wailing on him. Like Abby's fists are bloody, and she has just wailed on Joel. There was like a slight hesitation. Man, like I think Ellie had a slight hesitation. Like I would have thought Ellie would have just came in, maybe guns a blazing, but again, it's like 5 or so against 1, so don't like the odds as well in that situation. But they're able to, take down Ellie, and obviously we she's like telling Joel to get up and everything, and she's pleading not to kill Joel, and Abby just goes, and I guess she beat him so hard she broke a golf club, and she just stabs him in the neck, killing him. And then you get that look of like between Abby and Ellie, and she's like, I'm gonna kill you, and she's like, I'm gonna kill all of you, and like, oh my gosh, this was they make it out of there. We get a post Jackson where they won the fight. Never such a sad scene because a guy raised his arm, showed that he was bit, and I guess his friend or just another member of Jackson just they take him out. And like, oh my, it was such a sad scene. And it ends with, because we see Abby and her group leave and walk away, and then we see Jesse finally arrive. I guess he got held up at the mine, or he just didn't make it as quickly as he could to this location. But it just ends with them dragging Joel's body. I don't know if Dina was still unconscious. It looked like she was. It looks like they may have put her on the horse, or Jesse may have put her on the horse to go back to Jackson. But man, what an episode! What an holy crap! Now it's gonna be interesting to see on how ratings do. Which I would not be surprised if this elevates ratings, because this was something. This was a hook. This was a hook episode. They did episode 1, which is kind of like a catch up of what's happened, what the characters are, introducing like Abby and things like that. This episode, in my opinion, was a hook episode, which immediately locked people in. Okay, we're finishing this season with Ellie. We're going on this journey with Ellie for her to get her revenge. So I'm so interested to see on how the rest of the season plays out. But man, what an episode it was. Not much else to really say about it, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts about it down below. But that's pretty much it for this review. If you're new to the channel, be sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure you comment below. Tell me what you thought about the episode. Be sure you, hit that notification button, because this week is a lot of content coming. We've got Andor season 2 dropping tomorrow on Tuesday over on the gaming channel. We're doing Ghost of Tsushima and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So there's a lot of content for sure that you can enjoy. But guys, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see y'all in the next video.